morning, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to watch the inaugural ProSeries monthly webinar by Protect. The ProSeries content is designed to bring new ideas, strategies, and understanding of topics that help ensure people and processes are safe, equipment is reliable, and companies remain compliant with applicable regulatory jurisdiction. To ask a question during this webinar, click the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen to type your question. We'll either answer them as they come or we'll hold them for the end of the call. My name is Nathan Vandergreen, CEO of Protect, and I'll be your host for today. And we have a great topic in store for you to share today that we believe is meaningful and with regards to working from heights. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you the co-host of this call today and the speaker, Tom Degler. Tom Degler is the operations manager for rope access for Protect. And Tom, if you could give the audience here today a brief background and snapshot of just who you are and where you came from.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Nathan. Thank you all for joining. My name is Tom Degler. I am the rope access operations manager. I'm based out of Houston, Texas. I left Ohio in 2003 and moved to the Gulf Coast. I've now been doing rope access for 20 years in some capacity. I am certified level 3 in both the SPRAT and IRATA certifying bodies. I've worked across many different areas and industries using rope access over the years. I am currently certified as an ultrasonic thickness testing, ultrasonic shear wave, mag particle, dye pin, and visual testing technician. And I do hold NCCER certification for insulation. And
Tom, thanks for joining me here today. I think the rope access and the concept of rope access is new to maybe some of the listeners here today. So maybe if you could start off just by giving a high level is really what is rope access and where did it begin?
So in general, rope access, it's a safe method of working at heights where the ropes and the associated equipment are used to gain access to and from a work position and to be supported there for the duration of the work. It's a professional use of ropes to do inspections, maintenance, and many other types of work. The history of it, as we know it today, rope access began sometime in the early 1980s, adopted from recreational climbers and cavers. However, once it started to move into industry, the safety standard just wasn't there. So it went from a one rope system to what we know today is a redundant system, the use of two ropes. So with a redundant system, you have a working line and you have a safety line or a backup line. Each line has its own independent anchor, which follow OSHA guidelines for loading, generally 5,000 pound anchor. So in the case of an incident, if your main line fails, your safety line will arrest your fall, or vice versa. If the safety line fails, you are still attached to your main line. It's really used to access areas where scaffold, aerial platforms, man baskets, cranes would be needed.
Makes sense. And what type of certifications, training, and so forth is required to perform that type of work?
To become certified in rope access, you have to complete a general training course. It's generally a week long, 6 days, I would consider it. You will take 4 to 5 days of training with a trainer. It can be in-house, it can be conducted by a training company, whomever it may be. However, you must pass a 1-day assessment from a third-party SPRAT or IRATA assessor. There's numerous independent assessors across the country and across the globe, but the assessments have to be done by an independent assessor. It's based on a pass-fail, 3 strikes kind of thing. You can have up to 3 discrepancies before you will fail that course. Discrepancies are certain things that you are not allowed to do when you're working at heights involved with rope access, which I won't get into the weeds too far here.
And I guess maybe for the audience as well, just maybe where at a high level can rope access be used? And then what are some of the places where you just say, you know, it's probably not a good idea to use it there? If you could maybe extrapolate on that a little bit.
Yeah, so rope access can be used, or, you know, consideration should be given to it pretty much in any industry where anything is to be done temporarily at heights. You know, it's a job where we need to build a scaffold to get to this valve, or we need to get a scaffold to get out off of this platform a little bit farther, things of that nature. Consideration should be given to rope access. It should be looked at and walked down, just simply from the fact that it could, you know, it's going to reduce cost, time, and safety exposure of personnel. However, there are areas where traditional access would still rule, you know, scaffold or aerial lift. And those areas are simply just unavoidable high temperature surfaces. They do make high temperature ropes, but that's more for personnel protection. Realistically, you can't keep the person, you know, next to a really hot pipe or touching certain things. Unavoidable sharp edges is another one. There's not many jobs doing rope access where we can't deviate our ropes and keep them off of a sharp edge, but there are some where you simply just cannot remove the hazard. And at that point, it would have to be accessed some other way. You do need independent anchors, like I spoke on earlier, one for your working line, one for your safety line. If there's nowhere to anchor, two separate anchors above you, or at least laterally somewhere that we can access the area, then unfortunately we can't do rope access there. And the biggest one is initial construction. Obviously, if you're building up from the ground, there's not many anchor points above you. And in rope access, just as in traditional fall arrest, you are supposed to have your anchors completely above you, you know, at all times. So there are limitations, but they are few and far between.
And I know that, you know, you referenced that this is used broadly. If you could just hit on some of the industries and applications, I think that would be helpful for the group to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, rope access has pretty much made its way into almost any industry now. It's just, it hasn't gotten a lot of exposure in certain areas. So some of the main areas that it is used currently, wind energy for inspection and repair of those blades, doing composite repairs. That's a big industry for rope access currently. Offshore oil and gas. I've performed a lot of work offshore in my younger days. Everything from full inspection RBI programs to light construction, maintenance, heavy rigging, change in and change out of flare tips, you know, geotechnical retention out across the Western United States is really big business. You know, keeping the boulders from falling off of the side of the mountains and down onto highways. Inner cities, building maintenance. Lots of window washing companies now are moving to rope access, getting away from those crane baskets and the little trolleys that go up and down the side of the buildings. Standby rescue, independent companies, third-party safety companies have, you know, they've gone from using just basic standard rescue techniques to using rope access in a lot of their standby rescue services. And onshore petrochemical and refining is booming for rope access. You know, it's starting to work our way into the ethanol market and up through the Midwest and in the East. So the other ones, a lot of theme parks now are starting to use inspection via rope access. So many different industries. Just getting the word out is the main thing. That's why we're trying to accomplish with this webinar.
I think that when I look at the picture, Tom, of the wind turbine blade specifically, it makes me feel like this isn't not necessarily a role for somebody with the faint of heart, or, you know, with any kind of lack of affinity for heights. So I guess with just seeing this and hearing this, you know, hanging from ropes, performing work versus a structure like scaffolding and whatnot, maybe if you could hit on just some of the metrics that you're aware of is in terms of why is this safer, and what really kind of statistics are out there that proves that this is a safer route of going than scaffolding?
Yeah, so the safety benefit over scaffolding is simply it's less time for a crew exposed to the heights. It's a smaller footprint of personnel. The potential fall distances in a fall from a scaffolding is completely different. A traditional fall arrest harness, you're going to have an absorbica pack or a lanyard of some type. And depending on how tall the person is, weight, and a couple of different other factors, a traditional lanyard could take 9 to 14 feet before it deploys completely. And if you don't have 14 feet to fall, you're on the ground, hitting the ground. Whereas in rope access, if you were to take a fall, your lanyards are limited to 3 feet. And you see the stat here. This is Labor Board statistics, I think from 2021 or 2. Scaffold related accidents result in roughly 60 deaths and 4,500 injuries every year. And falls from scaffold account for roughly 25% of the fatal falls at height on all working surfaces. And also within those falls, rope access crews, another benefit of a rope access crew is that you have the rescue capability built within the crew. All personnel on a rope access crew are at a minimum trained in self-rescue, whereas if they've fallen but are not incapacitated, with some coaching and being talked through it, they understand how to rescue themselves.
You maybe add to and give us a breakdown. So I understand how this can be a safer method to get there, but just help us all to understand why would someone use rope access, and how does it help save them from a time and cost perspective? Just some metrics around that.
So as mentioned previously, the safety factor, it simply becomes safer because of a time requirement, less time and less personnel. You have fewer technicians required to do the same job. And in that, also saying that you have fewer crafts required to carry out the same job within a specialized rope access crew. If you have to build the scaffold, you need scaffold builders. If it's an insulation project, you need the insulators. If you have to do paint remediation and fabric maintenance, then you need the painters. And then ultimately the insulators come back behind them, and then the scaffold builders come back and take down the scaffold. So, it's less personnel to complete the same tasks. All 3 of those tasks can be rolled into a rope access crew. It's less time in the field, whereas it may take 10 personnel to complete that task with scaffold, paint, and insulators. That could be 3 to 5 persons on a rope access crew. The lower cost, generally around somewhere in the 60% cost savings. Rope access crews on a day-to-day basis generally cost more than your other crafts. However, the time spent completing the task is considerably less. And then a big one that I've really caught on to over the years, listening to clients and operators, is it's a smaller physical footprint. We do not have to leave scaffold. Scaffold stays in the way in a unit, and you've interrupted ingress and egress. Now you may have to change your emergency routes. It's always, it never fails that wherever the scaffold is where the operators need to get. So it may need to be modified or moved or changed, or simply it just hinders ongoing operations. And then, the overall sentiment is it's just safer to not use scaffolding.
I like how you picked a picture of plenty of scaffolding. It kind of really proves the point. So Tom, many of our customers, they're industrial facilities, they're biofuels producers, refiners, petrochem facilities, gas plants, power generation, et cetera. What do you see rope access most commonly used for to be more safe and more efficient?
Generally, the largest breadth of use that I get with rope access is for inspections. The good thing is obviously within the safety threshold and speaking with the clients and what their requirements and allowances are. Most inspections can be done online and on stream, not required to be in a shutdown, required to be in a turnaround. And generally the main types of inspections that we perform on rope access are API inspections, your tanks, your vessels, and your piping. The basic NDT, you doing your X-rays, your UTs, PTs, and MTs. We also have a full line of advanced NDT inspections that ProTech can carry out, and we also do have phase array and AUT and PEC technicians that are rope access certified, UT surveys, and risk-based inspections where we can do the full. If you don't have a program, we can set it up. We can carry it out from data to inspection to repairs, whatever we need to do.
One of the things I know when you joined us here at Protect, Tom, some of the interesting things were that, while you're up there, while you're already on site, and the ability that you have to get to places where companies would need to build scaffolding and figure these working from heights situations out. I do know that you have other experience and ability to help with other service and projects outside of inspection. Could you highlight just some of the ideas where you've deployed rope access to help these types of companies solve projects at different heights?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So see some photos here. These are multiple different crafts and items that can be replaced, repaired, and maintained using rope access. Demolition, installation, insulation, including the removal and or replacement and repair, like I spoke about earlier. This is something where it would require a scaffold insulation crew, a paint crew, and then the insulation crew to come back, and the scaffold crew again. It's all redundant. And the painting is involved in that as well. The fabric maintenance, blasting, painting, done from ropes relatively consistently throughout the Gulf of Mexico. Light rigging. This light rigging is very handy helping clients. If you're in a structure 100 feet up and somebody needs to hang a snatch block or a chain fall or install some bolt-on piece or something like that, generally requires a scaffold or a crane, or a 200-foot boom lift or something along those lines. And sometimes you can't get access to get the boom lift. The weather's been bad. It's too muddy. You don't want to sink the boom lift. This is something that, consideration could be given to rope access, and it may be a 3 or 4 hour job instead of a whole day and rentals and things like that. Again, cable pulls, electrical work, cable pulls. So do a lot of EHT splicing and things like that. Heat tracing would simply either have an electrician on crew or an electrician can be on the ground. We simply pull it. We can drop things down to the Sparky. They make their terminations, make sure everything's safe, and we can put it in the rack and secure it. And light mechanical work across the petrochem and refining industry has almost become a norm now for rope access crews. Just small tasks that are rope access crews are actually being planned into PMs and CMs for some operators and some crews now. Whereas we're on the schedule, we know that, hey, there's a little valve coming up that needs changed out. So get the rope access crew on the schedule, and we're actually forecasting jobs to use rope access instead of instead of scaffold taking that place. So like I said, it's a very, very useful tool, and there's not many instances where it probably can't be of some benefit.
Appreciate that, Tom. And I think to help the audience and to have the rubber meet the road, could you talk to a few of our more recent projects and just kind of high level what they were, and just to give them a flavor of what we can be engaged for here?
Yeah, no problem. So an ethanol facility in South Dakota, we installed 46, I believe it was blast door hinges, magnetic blast door hinges on some grain feed shafts. They were having an issue with those coming open certain times, and given their location, it was kind of a pain to be able to close those back up and resume. So now they're, after we put these little hinges on, they're able to be pushed back up with a pole and stuck to the wall where they should have been, and remain closed. And then in a natural gas processing plant here in Texas, we did some cable pulls, like I spoke about earlier. It was actually two 700-foot fiber optics, and each one was to assert its own individual train. And those bundles that we were replacing, I think they had 4 cables in them each, and they were all down to their last one due to weather damage. And should that final cable have failed on either one of those trains, they would have lost the entire plant. So they had really bad weather. They couldn't get mats out there, and they couldn't get to the cable trays with the geometry with a JLG. So luckily we were able to pull that 1,400 feet of cable in just over 3 days, I believe it was. And then midstream compressor stations, we went from the Canadian border all the way down here to Houston, Texas, doing insulation and coating inspections and insulation repairs. That was a 3.5, 4 month long project. I think 40 or 50 some sites that was included in that. And then a large petroleum refinery in Indiana, looking to save about $500,000 on equipment and hundreds of hours of time on tools for DTMs and the LDAR program that they have up there. And an example here of a scaffold for one of these DTMs that are involved in its leak detection and repair. Just these are somewhat arbitrary numbers. These have come loosely based on numbers I've seen over the years. To build this 8 foot by 25 high scaffold, you would need an estimator to come out and ensure that the scaffold can be built, and to see what they're looking at. You would need at least 6 laborers to source the material, put it in the buggies or the trailers or the trucks, and get it to the site and build it. And then your rental, once scaffold is put up, it generally goes on rent, and some places are per day, some are per piece, or some are per piece and per day. I just threw in $100 a day estimate there, and then no matter how many days it's out there, generally it's getting charged for. And then at the end of it, you need the laborers to come back, dismantle, remove, and take it all back to the yard. So you're looking at, 85 personnel hours for that one location, plus the $100 per day rent. And in that same area, from permit to finalization and de-rigging with a rope access crew, we will walk out and take a look at it with a 3-person crew. If it's possible to be done, we get our approval from the operator. We get us a permit and do our hazard walk and a rescue plan. We rig up, we perform the monitoring, we tag it as is required by the EPA regulations, and then we de-rig it. And so you're looking at around 9 hours for that one DTM versus 85 personnel hours, for the same DTM plus the rent for however long that scaffold has to stay.
Well, that's really what you had prepared for presenting, Tom, and I appreciate the insight, and hopefully it shed some light for the people here on the call. I know many people are just beginning to understand just how this is safer and can be more efficient ways to access jobs at heights. We're going to take a moment to answer any questions that have been submitted. If you have one to still submit, please do so now. Looks like the first one we have out there is, and Tom, I'll have you answer these because you're obviously best suited to do that. Can you help our company evaluate a job to see if rope access makes sense over the other options like scaffold?
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to come on site and consult with your facility, your work plan, and HSE, safety, whoever needs to, talk with us about it. If it's a concern about safety, if it's a concern about execution, if this job is actually viable, I'm more than happy to have those conversations. Some things can be done and estimated with great pictures and emails and phone calls. However, some jobs would actually need probably eyes on and a facility walk, but I am 100% available for those. And if I am not available, then I will send, my right hand person, the best suited to go out and see if we can help you out with something.
All right. The other questions, it appears that we've answered throughout the presentation and here today. So I want to thank you all for joining us here today for our first version of the Pro Series. The recording of this webinar will be posted to Protect's website and our YouTube channel, and will also be emailed out after the fact. If you'd like to have us visit your site and look at a job where we can help you provide a safer and more efficient solution for your company, please reach out to Tom, myself, or your Protect representative. Thanks everyone for your time, and take care.